alongside Royden Ogletree. Royden, we missed you last week because your job's gotten a tad more difficult in the last couple of weeks because your sports director, Darby Brown, has moved on to Austin.
Bigger and better things, some would say.
Yeah. Depending on your perspective of Austin, Texas.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the thing of whether you want to live in Austin or not. And her boyfriend does live there, so I mean, outside of a job and a bigger market and all that, it would seem that you would want to be with the person you're in love with. But
who's to say, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I decided to do it, but
it doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
So did I.
Yeah.
So did Garrett. Garrett did
pretty much out of high school.
19 out of high school.
I've been married for almost 20 years. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Separate houses, though, right?
No.
Oh, okay. I'll say some people, separate beds. Some people. Have you heard those stories of people that are like, yeah, me and my wife just have like different apartments or whatever.
Different rooms in their house. Yeah, because they can't sleep. Well, I mean, part of it is just.
And they're like we're happily married. They're not stepping out on each other or whatever. They're just like
their sleep bothers me, and I've decided that we'll just be in different rooms, and that's fine.
Apropos of Austin, have you seen the hotel prices for like everything that's going on down there?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like F1 race. UT game versus Georgia. I think Eminem's in town, and then another artist, maybe Sting or something, is playing. It's like all the hotels that are about $150 on a regular weekend or like on a concert weekend are $800 to $900 a night.
Yeah, that is. If I'm paying $800 a night, there's concierge service.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's
not like at the Ramada Inn. No.
Like if I'm paying $800 a night, I should be able to call down and be like, yes.
Foot rub, please.
I am fresh out of brie. And I was promised that there would always be brie in here. And I've come back from my mid-afternoon brie in the lounge, and there's no brie here. And then, sir, how much brie can you eat? How much brie can you bring?
Exactly.
Also, we're low on everything.
Yeah.
All of the things that come with this room. We would like more of.
I'm stealing your towels.
Yes. I'm not paying extra for this robe. It's coming with me. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. That $800, $900 a night, I'll tell you, that's a hotel I love because that's a hotel that has a bidet. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Except this time it's literally the Holiday Inn.
Yeah. Okay. No powdered eggs. Like I should not, for $800 a night, I should not walk down to the breakfast buffet and see powdered eggs.
A muffin, a prepackaged muffin.
No.
Yeah.
No. For $800 a night, I walk to Henri, the French omelet chef.
Yeah.
And say, Henri, give me your specialty. And then he puts some weird ingredient in there like Kobe beef.
Yeah.
Or it's like, here you go, sir.
Oh, this is Moudang? This is it.
Yeah, here's Moudang.
How did you That's so bad.
No. Yeah, exactly. So, Royden, this was a ridiculous weekend in college football. And before we get to our main topics of the day, which are the SEC and Big Ten making a further step into world domination, and how the Big 12 and ACC respond to that, I would like to know your thoughts on what I think was the most fun college football weekend, top to bottom, I've ever sat and watched on TV.
Yeah, well, that was the bit going into this weekend that it was supposed to. Oh, who would ever have their wedding on this weekend? You idiots!
Yeah.
And then going into it, there was teams had lost, and so the matchups on paper didn't look as promising as they once did when the season started. But then Oregon and Ohio State happened. And the LSU game came down to the final went into overtime. And I mean, the Red River rivalry was a blowout, but the rest of it just was down to the wire. You had comebacks by Penn State and all, everything that came with that. And Utah lost on like a Friday, like the precursors for it were good too. I thought it was, granted, I'm not going to lie to you and say that I got to watch every game because, again, being married comes with things like cleaning the house on the weekend and mowing the lawn and doing all that stuff.
Here's what I had to do. We had to do a few errands first. And she said, kind of she was great about it, but she was like, pick the window where you most likely
that's a good strategy.
To miss some things. The other thing I had to do is I had to do comedy on Saturday night.
Ooh.
And we were up against there was not a lot of people there. We were up against two different country concerts, Clint Black and Travis Tritt, Celebrations in town, all that. So the people who came really
wanted to see you,
or just were like, hey, we're at the hotel. What are we doing? This is $17. Let's go.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the thing. So
did you have a TV up with your set where you're just we're going to click through ESPN?
It was at a brewery, and so it's improv. So quite often during improv, you'll be like, okay, well, we're going to send Royden out of the room.
Yeah.
And, when he comes back, he's going to have to, play up this part because he's a janitor and, he doesn't know that.
Yeah,
So, all that. So I went out there 2 times for that, and I watched the games on the TVs that were out there at Bear Arms Brewery, and so that was fine. That was great. Happy with that. I worked out well. The show was an hour and a half. It worked out. By the time I got home, I was in time to see the second half of everything. Mm-hmm. So it was great. Home at 8:45.
Yeah.
Done. So.
I mean, you got a nightcapper. Even I started watching it. You got a nightcapper with Ashton Janty at Hawaii, even too.
Yeah.
I thought it was a really fun, great weekend. I think the best thing, obviously, was probably the Ohio State Oregon game. I really enjoyed the end of that LSU game. Nussmeier throwing that guy open to tie the game was probably the best throw that he's ever made, and seeing that against Ole Miss was spectacular. Side note is does LSU play defense anymore?
It's a work in progress.
Okay,
it's a slight work in progress.
Defensive back university, right?
Once upon a time.
Okay.
Once upon a time.
Actually, now they're wide receiver U.
Yeah. Okay.
Definitely wide receiver U.
They're right. You could make the argument that it's Ohio State or LSU. If it was the depth chart now that coaches do in college, which they don't do in the NFL because, we're professionals here. It's not Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. They tell you it's Justin Fields.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Mm-hmm. We're adults here.
Yeah.
College is like left guard, Roy Ogletree or Jack McKenzie or Emery Winter. Who's the left guard?
Yeah. One of them might actually still be hurt.
Hey, when you start the game and the left guard goes out there, which guy's that going to be?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to tell you all 3 of them. The other coach is going to be.
See.
The other coach is going to be like, oh, wow, 3 different left guards. Ooh.
Have to really prepare for that one.
There are so many things that college coaches do that I just just that. But yeah, it's Ohio State or LSU. And before one side or the other comes in, we could play the game all day.
Yeah. Splitting hairs.
Of the best receivers in the NFL right now, I think Alabama comes into that 3rd spot or where it's 1 and 1 and then you're technically 3rd, right?
Yeah.
But when you've got Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith and Jigba versus Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Brian Thomas Jr., all those other ones, you're kind of.
I say being buoyed by Justin Jefferson, the best receiver, and then Jamar Chase, 1B. This isn't a conversation, but that we were wanting to have. But I will say that I think they have the slight edge in that. The rest of the Ohio State receivers have to. They're yes, they're the most talented people in the world, and Chris Olave hasn't had maybe the quarterback play that he deserves. Chris Olave came to the Texans, but the idea that half the receivers or half the best receivers in fantasy football are all from 2 universities is bananas. Anyway.
Yeah, no, it is. So, all that being said, it was a great weekend. It was a great weekend. It was amazing. And I actually think that, if you go back to the weekend before, now it didn't live up to the billing of, all these ranked versus ranked games, but we're getting every week is getting wild because we actually do have some form of parity in college football for the first time in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Where it's legitimate. It's not so weird. It's crazy to see, and your brain still flips it that way. But Vanderbilt beating Alabama is crazy, and they hadn't done it in 40 years.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot more of those, and there have been a lot more of those in recent years, the same type of games where it just doesn't make sense, and it happens because, again, they're like guys are getting paid now. So, if you can get paid slightly more to go be a tight end at Vandy where you're going to play more, then all of a sudden Alabama doesn't have 3 tight ends that are studs anymore. Mm-hmm. It's that one other guy that goes there. Or, Eli Stowers is Vandy's tight end. He's really good. Well, he tried to be a quarterback at 2 other places, and then finally it occurred to him, like, well, it's like a coach finally said, like, this is not going to be your future. Do what Felipe Franks and who else am I thinking of? Who was the Redskins tight end that was at Florida?
God. Oh, my God. Give me a second.
Logan Thomas was a quarterback at Virginia Tech. He also played for Washington. The Trey Burton at the Eagles.
Not Aaron Hernandez. Yeah. Different Florida tight end.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's a lot of those that just decided, hey, I should be a tight end because that's where I can make more money than this. So, yeah, things have changed. So I think we're going to see more and more of those.
Well, and then Alabama nearly lost again this weekend or wanted to. Huh?
Jordan Reed.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Jordan Reed was the one I was thinking of.
Was he a quarterback?
He was a quarterback at Florida. And Jordan Reed is a big dude, too. And he wound up being a good tight end, got hurt a lot because part of the problem is when you transition from quarterback to tight ends have to, like,
block,
hit people,
yeah,
and don't just kind of randomly get hit. So at quarterback, you had to just prepare your body to be hit as opposed to hitting. I think that's
yeah. Felipe Franks made a like a special teams play, and people were like, "What? What is happening?"
Yeah. So yeah, Florida's had a lot of those, but which explains maybe why they haven't won a national title since Urban Meyer left.
Yeah, they got tight ends playing quarterbacks.
Trey Burton, Felipe Franks, and Jordan Reed all tight ends.
Jeff Driscoll for Tebow.
Jeff Driscoll.
Yeah.
Tim Tebow. Yeah.
One of the best tight ends.
10 years after he should have made the transition, he did. So
Tebow, man, people in Denver still talk about that season with Tebow at the helm. But
I guarantee you ask anybody who tackled anybody on that team, the defense was like, no. We needed him to get us in field goal range twice a game.
Yeah.
Our defense was lethal.
Yeah, exactly.
As proven that we won a Super Bowl with half of Peyton Manning the next year.
2 years from then.
2 years, yeah. 2 years from then, with half of Peyton Manning, we won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So.
No, I don't. The parity thing is interesting because I'm trying to think back in the history of college football in the 80s, and you had these teams like that wouldn't have been maybe historically successful. Like SMU had some success, obviously, when, SMU and TCU had historic success in the 40s and the 50s, and then it went away, and then there's all kinds of stories about paying players, and the great equalizer were the bags of money that would show up on the, on Eric Dickerson's doorstep or whatever. And maybe that provided some parity back then, but then again, there's a lot of have and have-nots. Like Texas would recruit players just to keep them away from A&M or Baylor, and would just sit them on the bench just so the other teams couldn't have them. And so, like, the scholarship number was a great equalizer. The under-the-table paying of players was a little bit of an equalizer. That went away, and so then again, you see larger programs having more and more success. But then, the introductions of spread offenses became like a great equalizer in college football. Maybe not to the amount of getting the most talent, but having to figure out how to defend those offenses became sort of an equalizer then. And then it kind of went away, and then you had all these just strictly SEC championships. And, of course, Saban became the great sort of I don't even know what the word would, but he shifted things to where it was like, it's just Alabama. Sometimes LSU gets in there. Occasionally Georgia would come up, or a Saban acolyte would supplant him somehow or another. But
just one Saban acolyte
just
really
one,
has done that.
But it is since Saban has retired, it seems like become and in the introduction of NIL, you see these swoons and these highs of different teams coming in. But yeah, I think you're correct in saying that even within these massive conferences where they thought, I'm not sure the Big Ten was like really planning on their bell cow like Ohio State and Michigan losing in the ways that they've had. But of course, the introduction of more talent into those conferences with the Pac-12 teams that they brought in has made it to where top to bottom, these conferences that were dominated by these premier programs now have to have a little bit more competition. I mean, and in the Big 12, the poster child of parity, it's even more so that, Utah thought they'd come in and run it, and I did too. Now it's like every other weekend the underdog is winning.
Yeah.
So there's a number of things that go into why that is. I think deeper conferences play a role in that. I think NIL plays a role in that. But it is fun to watch when you don't have specifically one team or two teams that we're all kind of like, well, it's just going to be those two teams at the end of the year, right?
Yeah. No,
running the show. Like, Texas has been unbelievable. I still think that they can get, in Georgia, less so, but I still think that they can get got by Georgia this weekend.
Yeah.
And so there's not a doubt in my mind that could happen. Now, Texas could go in there and roll them because Georgia
I don't think any team in the country is playing with as much confidence and swagger as Texas is right now.
No, I don't think so either. And it's, fans in the chat may not like it, but they look like the best team in the country.
It's generally bad for planet Earth that's happening, but
yeah, it's just the meme of like society if Texas wasn't running the country, and it's just like futuristic society.
Did you ever see the show Fringe?
No.
Like, so the idea of Fringe was that there were there was two Earths.
Yeah.
Or multiple, but the two, and there's this mad scientist has kind of opened up a door between the two of them.
Yeah.
But they also there were these people from the future who were controlling time.
Mm-hmm.
Bald and everything. And the thing that it was so polluted and all these things, it was because this one thing had happened.
Yeah.
Or these things that transpired. So I think about that a lot when I say these things look, if Texas keeps winning, eventually that they would show these guys and they'd be eating eating together, and they'd be putting pepper and hot sauce on their food because they couldn't taste anything because of the pollution and all that. And I think about that's what we're gonna be doing. This is why
eventually it's all Soylent Green.
Yeah, it's all Soylent Green. Yeah, Soylent Green is gonna happen.
Yeah.
I know that's probably not true, but at least in my mind that it is.
In your head canon, that's,
yeah, exactly.
That tracks. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think in the SEC, I think it's a good thing in the SEC though, for sure, because you've had Alabama dominate for so many years. Not to say to see them get knocked down a peg, and look, again, trading one evil for the other evil, Alabama for Texas. Like you said, the best thing for this, I don't know, maybe for the casual college football fan, you want to see the winners knocked down a peg. And so that has become Alabama over the past, 15 years. So maybe for the casual college football fan, they're like, hell yeah, Texas winning is awesome. But I would argue that the lower teams like Vanderbilt, like Kentucky, who is now, had a couple of upsets and was close to an upset of Georgia, and some of these teams that might not otherwise have been in the conversation, having them rise to at least the middle tier of the SEC has been really fun.
Yeah.
Because it would be the SEC is the deepest conference, and the argument would be made, and look at all the championships that the SEC has won. And I get the argument. But the idea that, we have this conference pride and it's all this, and it was just Alabama, really, and then Georgia here recently. LSU would sometimes sneak in there, and of course Florida had the early championships. But the idea that over the past 10 years you were rooting for the strength of this conference, and really it was just Alabama, and now you actually have a really deep conference, and in the Big Ten it was really just Ohio State, and now Michigan has gotten a little, won the championship and gotten progressively better, but now it's Oregon and all of these teams. I think it's really good for the sport. Now, fans of those universities may argue differently, but I think a rising tide lifts all boats when it comes to this stuff.
Absolutely. When we come back, Ari Temkin was on our show yesterday, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, and made some compelling points that the Big 12 is very underrated.